It was a huge undertaking that most people weren't sure was going to happen.
It was really very much like JFK's idea that we go to the moon by the end of the 60s.
The battle of man, scarring nature versus this, the beauty of nature.
This is certainly a Western, and it has sort of a lot of the iconic images that Westerns have, but in some ways it's an anti-Western. Hell on Wheels is dragging the urban blight and the industry of the East across the West and changing it forever. It's kind of the beginning of the end of the West as we knew it, as they knew it.
It's the story of the train cutting through 19th century America and bringing, civilization in quotes to the West.
When the tracks began to be laid, I think that among Indian villages, some thought that iron road means the end of life as we know it.
The sort of structure of the story, it's there. It's milestones of building the railroad. It's all historically accurate.
We're right after the Emancipation Proclamation, so slaves have just become free. You got to pay them to work now. And we're right after the Civil War. This is right before it really all changed.
One of the reasons they were able to build this railroad so fast is because it was like an army. These people, a lot of them were ex-Union soldiers, and they had ex-Confederate soldiers out there. They had the experience of moving material and getting the financing, and the war actually kind of helped it. Yeah.
This country that almost destroyed itself through war can only be healed by the binding together of East and West.
It's really important for us to work from something that's real and then create the fiction that we want to see.
There was a mobile city that cropped up around the thousands of men that were working on the rails. They needed saloons and brothels, just like anybody else.
They could literally pack up and move in one day. It was an entire tent city. There were whorehouses and gambling places and saloons and churches, and it served the flesh and the spirit.
You better keep an eye on your flock, Reverend. We do our own sharing converting around here.
It actually was called Hell on Wheels. I mean, we didn't make that up.
Aptly named because one less person every day. There'd be someone murdered every day in Hell on Wheels.
I'm just heading out west to look for work on the railroad.
Yes, so are we.
To seek our fortune, as it were.
In many ways, all of our characters are at a starting point. And they've all risked everything. I don't even know what you'd compare it to today, where you would just sort of drop everything and go to a place that you knew very little about that had who knows how many ways to die in an afternoon, and that they would take that risk on the promise of a better life.
Me, Cullen Bohannon. Why should I hire you? I'm willing to do just about anything.
Cullen is a former Confederate soldier.
Cullen, man of few words, the mystery of our show. He's our throwback to 1970s Westerns.
He's our protagonist, but he's probably one of the sort of darker, more conflicted protagonists you'll ever meet.
He's not a guy who's going to always do the right thing, but when forced, he's not going to do an evil thing. He may shoot someone, but he has a reason to do it. He's on a mission, which is going to thread its way through the whole series, I think.
He has one purpose, and that is revenge.
He's kind of our eyes and ears through this world. Cullen is the guy who kind of brings us in, and we're more or less following his journey. His journey happens to parallel Durant's train.
The only historically accurate character is Thomas Durant, played by Cullen Meany.
He was one of the major shareholders and owners of Union Pacific, and he was the driving force behind especially the early stages of the railroad.
He was a former ophthalmologist who basically woke up one day and thought, I think I'm meant for a higher purpose. And he went from ophthalmologist to rapacious developer almost overnight.
Several plot points in season 1 come right from really underhanded things he did, were just, almost too good to be true.
Durant, he's the catalyst for it all. He defines greed and avarice.
So you will be paying yourself to build a railroad with government subsidies.
Now that, my friend, is inspirational.
He was getting $16,000 a mile in government subsidies for the railroad. So he had the brilliant idea, since they were building over flat land, that he would put all these big oxbows in and get the $16,000 for more miles than he really needed to build.
What I was thinking was something more like...
Why wouldn't we make it straight?
Without him, this couldn't be done, and this needed to be done.
All them pretty gals gonna be there.
My character is Elam, a freed slave who is of mixed race.
He doesn't fit into any world, really. Certainly not the white world, because they would never let him fit in, even if he wanted to. But even with the other ex-slaves, he feels a little superior to them.
He ain't so bad.
Shut your dumb black ass up.
You know, he has a good heart, but after going through slavery, you know, it's definitely some built-up anger.
Now he's thrown into this world where it's no better now than it was when he was a slave.
Yes, sir, master.
Lily is a well-educated, intelligent, courageous woman from England who has married an American. He's a civil engineer and she's come over with him. He's part of a group of surveyors that are hired to plot out the course of the railroad.
She's in the wilderness by herself, and we just love the idea of this woman from a kind of aristocratic background who has fallen in love with her husband in the West, having to survive, you know, and we get to see her really become tough.
She becomes very much a part of what they're doing out there and decides to continue the work.
She feels this connection with the landscape and with the people.
There's real scope with Lily. It's going to be exciting.
We've jammed every episode full of so many great plot twists and character beats.
It's a really well-written story. Beautiful characters.
Everywhere you look in this script is a great character.
It never gets old. I mean, every day on set, it's still these sort of pinch me moments, you know, that this is really happening. This isn't your, you know, your father's Western.
Ironically, shooting this show is kind of like building the railroad. We're starting from scratch. We don't really know where we're going. We're not sure when we're going to get there, but we're definitely enjoying the ride.